So
Yes.
I can see
confirmed.
it.
All right. So with no further ado, the introduction. Let's go ahead and introduce you to, for one, the Millionaire Portfolio Group. That's who put this all together. I'm Coach Jay. I'm a partner in the Millionaire Portfolio Group. What we do is come up with very creative solutions, right, to the problems of the people that we serve. You know, that could be entrepreneurs, businesses, corporations, as well as even families and communities. That is what we do. So we are gathered here today to really discuss the changes that are foreseen as well as what has already been forsaken, right, in the insurance business, right? A lot of this has to do directly with COVID-19. So what we want to make sure is that everybody understands the takeaways that we want for all participants and attendees to walk away with, right? Learn, share, grow is the key to all of this, right? So first and foremost, we want for you to have a very valuable life experience. If you're investing your time in this right here, we want to make sure that you understand the value that you're getting from the people, the panelists that will be sharing their expertise with you. You know, as so we want to make sure that you walk away with a very valuable life experience for the amount of time that you actually are here with us. We want for you to enter into your fields, leave here and go out with a renewed sense of purpose, right? Some type of motivating energy that's going to drive you into the next century of leading the insurance business or insurance industry, financial service industry, whatever industry that you're in, right? We want for you to be able to walk away from here with enough tools, enough energy or renewed purpose to where you can really make an impact into taking us and leading us in the right directions coming out of COVID-19. The other part is that we're going to present you with a bunch of resources, tools that you can put in your own toolbox that will help catapult you to exactly where it is that you want to, where you want to go, right? So these are all the things that we want for you to be able to walk away with. So if we are able to accomplish those things, then we did our job. We greatly appreciate you. Now, who do we have here? I'm going to introduce you briefly to our panelists. In the top left corner, we do have Shalita K. Hunter, aka Shalita Shantae, and a bunch of different networks, all depending where you met her at, right? So we have Shalita K. Hunter. She's actually the founder of the Millionaire Portfolio Group. That's why we are here today. We'll introduce you to her later. We have Mr. Mike Skunk, Mr. Mike Skunk from South Florida, Broward County, right? We'll introduce you to him very briefly. We have Miss Lisa Reagan, all the way in beautiful Montana. So we're covering the map today, as well as Mr. Casey Fernandez out of Lake Mary, Florida. We're going to introduce you to our panelists as we cover the topics. And speaking of the topics, before we get into the topics, we want to make sure that we lay out a few ground rules to ensure that we cover the takeaways that we want to occur. Anyone that's involved, as long as you're on here, please feel free to type away. We want this to be as engaging as possible. So make sure you comment, make sure you're sharing with everyone your thoughts. You are in a very, very safe environment. Everyone that is here is in the same line of industry. So we understand what some of the complaints, concerns, as well as some of the innovations are. So make sure that you're sharing with everybody so we can keep this as interactive as possible. Do us all a favor as you come on, as we're talking, make sure you stay muted. The most aggravating thing in the world on any type of Zoom platform is to hear the barking dog in the back, right? So I think we all agree with that. So make sure you keep your devices muted to where we can't hear you while someone's presenting. And the other thing we want to ensure that you do is leave empty. And what we mean by leaving empty is that when you come here, or as we go along, we want for you are invited to really pour your information, your expertise, your energy into this. Because the concept is, if we leave empty, if we left all our energy in these next hour and a half, 2 hours, if we go that far, as long as you leave all that energy here, you'll actually be able to walk away full. So we just want to make sure that you keep that in mind. If we do these three things, we're going to have a great time today. Now, to get to the topics, excuse me, I've been drinking my coffee, I'm getting tongue-tied. So these are the four topics that we will be addressing. I believe these four things that attracted some of you to this. One is contracting. And with Ms. Lisa Reagan will be actually introducing contracting with you. Residual and renewal income. And that's a topic that I'm pretty sure a lot of people are very interested with. and Miss Shalita K. Hunter will be presenting that. Going into transitioning, we have an expert who's been around, been in the business for over 30 plus years, who has transitioned, and he will share his story with you as well, Mr. Mike Scump. And then with lead sourcing and maintaining consistent workflow, that will be done by Mr. Casey Fernandez. So those are the 4 topics that we will cover today. So we will have a great time, and then we will actually go into a discussion as we cover our topics. You will have an opportunity to have an open discussion, share your thoughts with the panelists, the experts, as well as make sure that you are typing away so that we can get your feedback, because we're going to discuss that as we go along too. All right, so I hope that kind of helped keep everything into its proper context. So let me get up out of there. How do I, oh, stop share. Thank you. Still learning technology. All right, guys, and let's see. I believe we did have a chat come on. Join. Okay. Yes, sir. All right, so now we're there. So first things first. Now we're going to move into our first topic, which will be contracting with Miss Lisa Reagan, right? And before I do that, I want to make sure Lisa, who is actually a resident, how do you say that? A resident of Montana, yeah. A resident of beautiful Montana, right? You've been in the business for over 34 plus years. You have experience, a lot of experience in life and health insurance, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And one thing that stood out to me is your passion. You know, you're real passionate about a certain area, and that's helping people with evaluate risk management. Oh, that's your bread and butter. That's the thing that makes you tick.
Well, that and just really mentoring people. That's a huge component. So you need to know what your risks are. And when I was asked to discuss contracting, I was really passionate about it because that is risk management 101. As you're looking into how you want to go about engaging in building your business.
Okay. And as far as your business experience, what does that consist of?
I've been primarily a captive agent throughout the course of my career, and I did have an opportunity to branch out with doing a lot of different group insurance plans. For whatever reason, I'm a very loyal person and just decided that working with an insurance company that happens to hold you captive, especially starting out, because when you're starting out and you're looking at prospecting, that's a huge, all right, how am I going to talk to people? What kind of support am I going to have? That whole component. So when we're looking at 34 years down the road, it's evaluating where do I want to take my expertise in business, because with all that time involved, I really feel that it's imprudent to do your own due diligence and look at the full risk management of when you sign a contract with a company or an agency, how you want to represent yourself, represent the people that you're connecting with the insurance company, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure you're getting paid for the services and or products that you're supplying. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I found contracting super important is in 1994, I had a contract with Mutual of Omaha, and I didn't read it thoroughly. It's just, that time it was actually a pretty short document, about 20 pages. And my mentor's like, oh yeah, you just got to sign the contract. Mutual of Omaha is going to bring all these supplies. I'm going to help you prospect, and I'm not, involved in making the commission, so you get all the commissions. Well, so that sounded really good. And I'd already had a relationship with this gentleman, so there was trust. But I didn't do my due diligence and read the contract. So it was actually 5 years into the contract, Mutual of Omaha as a company was changing their agency platform. So in the state of Montana, with contracted agents, they were able to terminate the contract. Paragraph H, section 2. That's what you had to refer to. It's like, because boom, all my renewals stopped. All income came to an immediate halt. Not only that, but Mutual of Omaha owned the clients because I was an agent, right? So you look at that going, now what? And you got to pick up the pieces and move on. And the people who I served were asking me for help. Well, I did a lot of life and disability individual plans, and people were like, how am I supposed to get help now? So as you're representing, whether it's Mutual of Omaha or ABC, or it doesn't really matter what company, do your own due diligence and write out your pros and cons. Do I want to be an agent? Do I want to be a broker? So that when you're evaluating all the risk involved on putting your signature on the dotted line and what you're responsible, to do with that particular agency or company. Does that make sense to you, Dr. J? I want to make sure I'm not just talking to myself.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. You got to keep in mind, I'm not even in the financial service business as far as being an agent or anything, but I do understand exactly what you're talking about when it comes down to reading between the fine print. So and really with me just being the green guy who doesn't know anything, what I'm taking away is that basically you're saying the best thing that, especially for a new person coming into this industry, can do is for them to kind of already start looking further ahead to see where it is that they want to go before they start making those decisions to where they're signing their life away.
Absolutely, because at the very end of whatever legacy you want to leave, you're accountable to yourself first, and then whoever you contract with in whatever capacity that is, they're not responsible for you. So it's to take ownership of your decisions fully. So for a half a minute, I really wanted to blame Mutual of Omaha for my financial woes, but it wasn't their fault. They made a business decision. It was not personal.
Gotcha.
I made a decision based on, I trusted my mentor, and they were a solid AAA rated company, had, longevity, all that. So in doing my risk management on what I decided to do for me, I did not look at multiple streams of income, what was going to happen in the event a contract was canceled. Could they even do that? I had no awareness whatsoever. So when it comes to what your responsibilities are and the agency, company, whoever that is, what their responsibilities are, dig, ask questions, find a really good mentor to coach you through. So because you want to be able to, for me, I want to be able to maintain the relationships with the people I serve. And that's not the insurance company, for me. It's the relationships that you create with people who you get to know not only what their business needs are, but what their personal lives are all about. And when I had to turn around and tell them I can't help you, that was very painful for me. So make a list, write out what is important to you, do your pros and cons, do your due diligence, and have someone get a legal representative and read that contract that you're signing before you sign it.
So you really you gave them a excellent actual to-do list before walking into something. So we greatly appreciate that. Now with looking at everything, because I know this happened to you initially in 1994, and that's where you learned from it. Now we're looking at, now we're being in 2021, and even everything that's happened with COVID. Have you seen any differences or changes in how agents or someone that's coming in can be protected? Or did they change any type of laws, rules, regulations, anything? Are there any resources out there that outside of just going to see a lawyer that especially new agents can look into?
Well, as far as doing your due diligence and looking at so COVID or no COVID, what we do have available are groups like this. You pulled us together to bring knowledge to people who are looking for it. Find a group that you can ask those questions of. In my experience, I haven't noticed much changing in contracting other than there's less fluff in contracts now than there once was. You know, whether there might be a pension if you're going to be a captive agent. There's a lot more compliance that you are responsible to make sure. So when you're out marketing yourself and or products from the company you represent, that has become more stringent. You know, so using these digital platforms, specifically Zoom, you need to know from, like, let's say you're with Metropolitan Life or Northwestern Mutual, you need to know from the powers that be what your scope is and how that's changed, how many, like a Zoom license through that company, or can you do your own? What can you put out there so that in your accountability to yourself, your clients, and the company you represent? So there's a lot of resources that when it comes to simple definitions and knowing what's going on outside of companies is, I really like Investopedia for what's going on in the markets, because I do a lot in retirement. It's a very unbiased site. You get incredible definitions. And as far as other locations to really look up, I just go to Google.
Yeah.
When
all else fails, Google it away, right?
Right. But I like groups like this. So there's really good groups in LinkedIn, and that's how I got connected with Shalita.
Awesome. And are you doing anything outside, like on a one-on-one, to where people can actually contact you and get some type of guidance or whatever, however we'll call it, to really be able to get some help? Do you do any of that?
So personally, I do it. If someone has a question, I do that. So you can give them my name, my cell phone number, and my personal email.
Okay. All right. So, and we will be following up with everybody that attends this, so we'll make sure that we share that out there. We're going to try not to get your line blown up, though.
Hey, that's great.
But
that's
definitely
not a problem.
So Lisa Reagan of Montana, we greatly appreciate that information. Now, you dropped about 3 excellent resources, that people can use to be able to protect themselves with from the downsides of contracting, as well as people being able to empower themselves with making sure that they do their own due diligence. All right, so we definitely appreciate your time. So now we're going to move on to the next topic, which would be residual income, residual and renewal income. And that'll be hosted by Miss Shalita. Shantae, how you doing, Miss Shalita? Shantae, you ready? You gotta unmute. Let me do it for you. I got you. right, so
Give me 1 second. Can we have Mike to come on? I have Antonio trying to get the password to come in.
okay, you're trying to get somebody else on. All right,
Yes.
you're always working, right? All right, so you can go ahead and mute yourself again. As a matter of fact, I did it for you. All right, Mike, we're gonna go ahead and jump into you, man. We're looking at transitioning. I'm ready to hear this one. You know, so yeah, no further ado, we have Mike over there, and he's in intergalactic world with the background behind him. Right. So we have Mr. Michael J. And I want to make sure I'm not messing up your last name. How do you say your last name?
You already blew it. But that's okay. All right.
I'm from Georgia. That's why I told you that.
It's Shunk, but I grew up.
Okay.
But I grew up Skunk. Okay. Now, if Shalita's laughing, that's because I told her hunk. Okay. So you take your pick: Shunk, Skunk, or hunk. Okay. So it doesn't really matter. But all right, Coach. Let's put me in. I'm ready to play.
Okay.
All right.
So we have Mr. Michael J. Shunk, right, out of Broward County, Florida, who is the president and director of Employee Benefit Advisors, right? Who with a focus, basically your company focused solely on health and wealth care benefits. And going back, having a interesting conversation before all this, you've done a whole lot of transitioning throughout your career. You're also adjunct professor at FAU, correct? That's Florida Atlantic.
That's correct.
Yeah. So yes, you've done a whole lot of transitioning over the past, and I think we're here to hear this. All right. So how can you help people really listening? Because now we're looking at approaching more than just one side of the people that we have that are attending, because we have some people just coming in, we have some people that's been in it for a while. We also have a lot of people that are really trying to figure out what's our next move, because things have changed. So what information can you give to them to kind of help them out with transition?
Well, Jay, you're right. Trying to figure out your next move was what I call setting your own destiny. Everybody wants to have their own career path. They want to be able to set up their own, they want to establish their own destiny, whatever that is. So I'm going to go back to when I started my career, fresh out of college.
Okay.
I worked for a Fortune 500 company, and I covered Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. I was living high on the hog. The thing was that unfortunately at that time there was something called an oil embargo going on, and in Central America they had import restrictions, and the heavy equipment that we were providing that territory was on the import restriction list. So the company I was with, they let go of their whole sales and marketing team for that territory, and thus I was out on my own. So the one thing that irritated me about that is that I realized that I had no control over my destiny if I was going to be working for somebody else, especially a large corporation. So I looked at other alternatives, and one of my friends was in the insurance industry, and he talked to me about, you set your own career path, you can make as much money as you want, you can work as little or hard as you want, everything's up to you. Well, at the time I thought I was smarter than everybody else. I knew I could outwork most people, and so lo and behold, I figured, this will be easy. Well, it didn't turn out quite so easy, but the hard work part was correct. So what I did was I actually licensed myself as a captive agent in a career agency, and I sold individual life and disability insurance for several years. I was fairly successful out of it. I made MDRT every year that I was involved in the individual market. And I actually did it through cold calling. I would pick up the phone, I'd call, because I didn't know anybody here in South Florida. Remember, I grew up in the Midwest. I went to college up there. I was transferred down here by my Fortune 500 company, and then I was off and visiting all these other countries. So I had to pick up the phone and I had to meet people, and that's kind of how I did it. I actually developed a very clever way to take a cold call and make it so that it didn't seem so cold. Well, after doing this for several years, I had an opportunity to sell a large group. And long story short, after making that sale, I realized that I was more suited for the group market than I was the individual market. And so I started to build a block of business from the group market, which meant group health insurance, group disability, group dental, group life, anything that's group oriented. And I transitioned actually rather quickly into the group and gave up as an individual producer. I had my own firm for several years, and then I merged with a regional firm, and we got bought by a national firm. Now, I was one of the shareholders. I had a large block of business that I'd brought into this regional firm, and so I did fairly well. I paid off my mortgage. I set some money aside for my son's college, and so life was good. The only thing that I didn't make enough money to support my golf habit. So I still had to go out and I still had to work to support my golf habit. Well, after we sold, there was a 3-year earnout period. Well, I did not enjoy, again, working for a large corporation. So after the earnout was finished, and we maxed our earnout in 2 years, but I had to hold out for 3. I set up my own agency again. And that was back in October of 2009 when I established Employee Benefit Advisors. So now I had to go out and I had to start my own agency again. So what I did was I actually formed a networking group that I established, that I ran. And it was I call it B2B, the B2B networking group. Everybody in the group, their business, their clients are other businesses. So it's a business to business networking group. We're not trying to have 30, 40, 50, 60 people in the group. Right now we have 17. That's probably the most that it's ever been. And I have hand selected everybody. And I've run the group for 12 years. Everybody in it is highly professional, and they take the business very seriously. Now, that's kind of where I'm at today. So I used that to build up a very successful business over the years. I'm now at the stage where I'm thinking about, okay, now that I get to the end of my career, I'm either going to retire. I'm going to retire, and I'm going to have to either sell the business or pass it on to somebody. And I really haven't really identified that person that I'd like to pass it on to. So it's looking more and more like I'm probably going to end up selling the business, which is fine. So if anybody out there is interested in, kind of might be dabbing, and they're in South Florida and they're interested in, employee benefits, maybe we should talk. Yeah. So that's kind of like my career in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And I do want to address 2 things about contracting that Lisa brought up, and I thought that they were excellent points. If I was starting my career over again, and I was working for, let's say, an agency in the employee benefit business, the one thing that I would do is make sure that whoever I was working with, that the contract said that they were my clients, and that if I, for some reason, moved on, or if they wanted me to move on, just because we weren't getting along, or whatever the reason might be, that the clients were mine. There was no blackout period where I couldn't go back and talk to the people that I had brought in. All right. And the other thing is, regards mentoring, I'm actually a mentor with a national organization called SCORE. So I work with a number of businesses that are either just getting started or are trying to take it to the next level. And that's really kept me sharp. So I really like what Lisa said about mentoring. I think that that's an important part of what I'm doing at this point in my career. So okay. Hey, yeah, I hit a lot of points as quickly as I could.
Yeah. Yeah, but with myself, because I'm a very, I guess, I know how to, I'm a chess player, so I know how to kind of connect the dots. And what I've learned by meeting more and more people, that a lot of people haven't honed that skill, you know. So I can see how it went, boom, 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 you know, and literally starting out as a one man guy getting into an industry that you knew nothing about, figuring it out, and then finding your own kind of sort of niche to where, okay, this is how I'm going to rock and roll, you know. So what's the key thing when you go to make a decision of, okay, I'm about to transition to this part right here and just focus solely on this, kind of fine tune it, laser focus. Like, what is the process that you use to know when it's time to make that decision or that move? Like, is there a particular way that you break it down or analyze it?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, and there's a number of different ways to look at that. For example, technology is becoming more and more important. So what I do is I will talk to my clients about, okay, let's take a look at the technology that is available. And one of those is benefit administrative platforms. So I would talk to my clients about, okay, do we need a benefit administrative platform? If so, which one? And I would kind of, my sense of urgency was gauged on their sense of urgency. If they continue to kind of like things the way they are, that's the path we continue, but I would always keep them aware of changes in the industry that might impact that. That's always kind of what I've tried to do, is I've tried to be out at the forefront of at least learning about what's going on, and then taking it to my clients so that if somebody talked to them about something that was going on in the industry, they know that, oh, Mike already talked to us about that. This sounds interesting. Let's go back and talk to him again. Something that's that's really up and coming for the larger companies is the captive insurance market, where companies come together and they create their own insurance company and to cover their risks. Well, captives are becoming more and more important. I've already gone out and talked to my bigger clients, the ones that be candidates for that. I've already talked to them about what it would take to belong in a captive. And so it's always just kind of staying aware of what's going on in the industry. And one way to describe it is being a student of the industry.
Gotcha. Okay. And now with looking ahead, right? Because this is because I know you're ready to just go ahead and start touring around the world, visiting all the golf courses you possibly can, right?
Yeah, you can see them in the background. You can see them everywhere. You see a light, that's where there's a golf course.
A golf course at. All right. So we know that you're on the tail end of your business journey, as so to speak, being involved every day. You know, so if you were say that you were at a stage to where you were looking to do this for another 10 years of being very active and involved, is there anything that you've noticed, a trend or anything like that, or anything that somebody should probably be very mindful of to help them transition through this COVID period for, say, the next 3 to 5 years? Like, is there anything that's specific that, you know, it could be like an aha moment for somebody that's viewing? Is there anything that you can think of?
Well, you know, I think that the one thing is I'll go back more than 10 years. Certainly if I had 20 years to go or more, I'd be looking hard and fast at who could I work with, who's a mentor, who could I learn the most from. 10 years, it's still important, but if you've only got 10 years to go, you've kind of pretty much got a lot of things established. So then it's a matter of fine-tuning those alliances, fine-tuning those resources that you have. But, you know, I want to go back to, you know, again, Lisa, give her a lot of credit. She was talking about mentoring. So find a mentor, though, that is interested in you and not just in you because you will make them successful. When I was inside of the general agency system, I was mentored by someone that, as long as I was doing what made them money, what made them successful, I was, a golden boy. But as soon as I shifted in a different direction, now all of a sudden that mentorship was lost, and I really had to scramble to create a new direction, so to speak. So I think mentoring, getting the right mentor is very important.
Gotcha.
So if you're in that case, if you're in a general agency, try to find a mentor that's outside of the general agency, somebody you can just go and have a good relationship with.
Gotcha. And that's something that you offer through, just like you were telling us about, like with an organization like SCORE. And you said it's national, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And if they're in South Florida, people can actually contact you directly.
That's correct.
Okay. And if you look in the chat section, we actually put Mike's contact information as well as Lisa's in there, and we're going to drop everyone's contact info so you can get in touch with them as we go along. And definitely, Mike, man, I think that was some great information that you left for us, as well as the key to it. Like, that's I've learned that part with just the different industries that I've worked in. Having somebody that you can learn from, but also is invested in you as more of a person. So when you can't be that much of an asset to them, they're still there. So that's definitely a powerful thing. Mentorship is definitely the key. Is there anything else you want to leave us with?
No, if I went any further, I'd take Casey's thunder, and I sure don't want to do that.
All right, definitely. Okay, so definitely.
Well, especially if we're going to be buying your book of business, Mike, you want to treat
All right, and now, okay, so definitely we greatly appreciate Mike. If you guys need to get in contact with him, just keep in mind his contact information is in the chat section. And I want to make sure we acknowledge a couple people that joined us while we were on. Antonio, how you doing? Sharon, great to see you. All right, feel free if you have any questions, any comments, anything like that, put in the chat section. That way we can add it into our combo. That way I don't have to talk so much. I can save my voice a little bit. I signed up for it though. So now we're going to transition into the next topic, which is diversifying lead sources, as well as keeping consistent workflow. And this will be with no further ado, we have Mr. Casey Fernandez from Lake Mary, Florida. Beautiful location. All right. How you doing today, Mr. Fernandez?
Coach Jay, I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Just trying to hang in there. It's a little stormy up here in North Florida. Is sun shining down there in Lake Mary?
A little cloudy, but I'm looking onto the golf course, and I can almost picture Mike out there, hitting a nice iron onto the green.
Got you. Above or below par?
It sounds like Mike has had plenty of practice, and he seems like a guy who doesn't do anything halfway. So my guess is he's on his game. Okay,
so we're going to introduce Mr. Casey Fernandez, a seasoned professional with the Highland Group, which helps middle market size companies save up to 60% of their business insurance that they spend out every single year. So you save some nice size companies a great deal of money. So it's worth their time to invest in your expertise, correct?
Well, Coach Jay, specifically with what Mike mentioned a minute ago, I work on the property and casualty side, which for our attendees, that's like general liability, workers' comp, auto liability, and property insurance, whereas Mike works on the employee benefits side. And I specialize in captives, and that's where we can return 40, 50, even 60% of a company's insurance spend every single year. We're in a hard market, and it becomes very attractive. But enough about that. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to talk. I'll mention, just as a follow-up, I can't agree more with Lisa on reading the contract, and I'll just take 30 seconds to mention how I worked with another agency, and I was an independent contractor. I owned my book of business per Mike's comment, but the agency thought they had first right of refusal to buy it. It was their contract. They didn't read it. I had an attorney look at it, and it turns out I could sell it to anybody. So I sold my book of business to Highland, came over here. The old agency was not too happy, but it just shows to all the attendees, people don't read contracts. They don't read contracts. They don't read contracts. So if you can read the contracts and make it simple for them, you're in a class by yourself. That's one thing. The other thing that I thought Mike mentioned that was awesome was find a mentor. And I would add to that, be a mentor. You might be 23 years of age and you might say, who the heck can I mentor? There are opportunities to mentor kids like in high school that are going through, that are looking, there's different programs that you can just Google them or you can email me and I can introduce you to some. But I think it's a great opportunity for you not only to have a mentor, but also to be a mentor and see what it's like on the other side. When you schedule a time to meet with the person and they don't show up, how do you feel? And so on. It'll make you a better mentee, but I think it'll also help you both ways. So just a thought there, not only look for a mentor, but also look for an opportunity to be a mentor, whether you're coaching, baseball or sports, or just helping a kid out with academics. All right. Enough about what Mike and Lisa said about. Okay, diversifying your prospecting. Obviously, there's a ton of different ways you can prospect. I wrote down a few: networking, and however you define that, email, cold calls on the phone, physical visits, direct mail. That's where you put a stamp on a piece of paper, an envelope, and you give it to a guy called the postman, and he takes it and delivers it to somebody. I know it seems strange, but
that's way before my time.
What'd you say, Coach?
That's way before my time.
Yeah, I know I'm dealing with a younger crowd, but here's the thing. When I write a handwritten note to somebody, I put a stamp on it and send it to them. I would say the majority of time I get a phone call or an email back thanking me for taking the time to do that. So the point there, Coach Jay, and I think you make a great one, no one does it anymore.
Yeah.
And my rule of thumb is, if your competition does it, don't do it. And if you can find something different to do, then do it. I'm happy writing notes and sending them out. I think it's a smart thing to do, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. The other things you can do are, you can do talks to groups like we're doing today, social media, obviously, client referrals, center of influence referrals, friend referrals. So there's a plethora of different things. If any of you watched, the Three Amigos, you know what a plethora means. There's a whole bunch of different things. What I would say to anybody starting out in the business is, first of all, pick 2, maybe 3 ways of prospecting and commit to those 2 or 3 for, let's say, 2 months, and do them religiously. Work with your mentor, work with your boss on what sounds appropriate, what seems appropriate, and track it. Because if at the end of the week you're like, oh, I made a bunch of phone calls. Well, how many? I don't know. Well, how many conversations did you have? How many voicemails did you leave? What did you do? And if you don't have any of that tracked well, it's going to be a waste of time. Honestly, it's going to be a waste of time, and you really won't know whether it's working or not. So the bottom line is, what Coach Jay introduced me, I have a proprietary program that saves clients up to 60% of their insurance spend every single year. And that, honestly, that's my cold call, that's my voicemail, that's my email. It's consistent, it's short, it's sweet, and people understand it. And I have found it makes things a lot easier when prospecting. The one thing I'll leave in terms of ways to prospect, I'll mention is, I think sales ultimately is a relationship game, especially when someone, as a CPA friend of mine once said, opens the financial kimono and shows, what the good, the bad, the ugly that they have. Sales is definitely a relationship thing, but prospecting is a numbers thing. You have to work hard, as Mike mentioned earlier, and don't take it personally. It's work that just needs to be done. So again, multiple ways of prospecting. I mentioned a bunch of them. Find one that works well for you. And I'll give you a quick example. A friend of mine sells high-powered saws and tools for the woodworking industry. And he was talking to me the other day, and I said, he says, oh, I was in Ormond Beach doing there, and then I was in Daytona doing this and that, and so on. I said, so do you find, because these are mini factories or large factories, that you have access to these people, even through COVID? He said, absolutely. He says, only once have I been turned away from walking into a business. So that particular business, you can do physical calls and walk in. You might be able to schedule or pinpoint 10, 15, 20 people that you could go see on a given day. Now, if you're selling financial services, and especially if you're in a major metropolitan area, that probably is not going to work real well. I could be wrong, but physical visits would probably not be your best source. But like I said, there's a multitude ways of doing things. Pick two or three that fit well with you and give them a shot and track them. And the only other thing I would say is, your boss, not your mentor, but your direct boss, they want you to win, because I would assume compensation is set up that if you do well, they do well. So be candid with what's going on with them, and have them help you. Now, I'm switching gears now to consistency. And I would just say this, very simple. If it's important to you, you will do it. Because I think most of us probably in the last week or so have had something to eat. Am I right? We figured out, hey, we had something to eat. Why? Because it's important to us. We get hungry, and, we don't want to necessarily go through a week-long fast and not eat anything. And fortunately, we're blessed enough to live in a country where food is fairly abundant. So if it's important enough to you, you will do it. So prospecting, if it's important enough to you, you will do it. But to have a consistent and successful career again and again and again, I think you have to have a dream, a passion, and then a goal behind that to drive you. Because I would say you have something that you're going forward to get, a dream, and then you're something that kind of is kicking you in the rear, the carrot and the stick, so to speak, in terms of doing that. So I would say this, if all you're doing is making 200 cold calls a day, you're probably going to get burned out, probably by Wednesday, unless you're Superman and you can do it for months and months and months in a row. If you can, God bless you. I don't think that's realistic. So I think what you have to do is, just like in most financial services, it's the turtle wins the race, right? The ongoing, consistent effort. And I would suggest that you make sure that you're physically taken care of, you're mentally in a good spot, spiritually in a good spot, whatever that means to you, just in terms of, what moves you, what do you believe, and associating with like-minded folks. And professionally, you're keeping up your skills, right? Because what happens in Florida every year in February and March? Coach Jay, what happens every year in Florida in February and March?
You said what happens every year, February and March?
February and March in Florida. What professional group comes down to Florida every year to practice their craft?
It's not Florida State.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But
I think is that the lobbyists normally.
the baseball, we have baseball. The Citrus League comes down. All the Yankees, the Red Sox, a lot of teams come down to Florida. What do? These guys are making millions a year. What do? They practice their craft. So I think one of the key things in having consistent success over a long period of time and being able to prospect consistently is having some kind of balance physically, mentally, spiritually, professionally, so that you can keep going towards that goal. 3 quick books I'll throw out that I love. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. That's Victor with a K, Viktor, Frankl. The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, Ruiz, and 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. Like Jordan Peterson, one of his rules, he talks about how you need to treat yourself like someone that you care about. So almost saying mentor yourself. And it's a great book, but Man's Search for Meaning, The 4 Agreements, and 12 Rules for Life are 3 books I've read over the years that have impacted me and given me confidence and motivation to keep going. So I'll end with that and throw it back to Coach Jay, unless anybody has some questions.
Well, I think you hit us with a home run, to be honest with you. Yeah, definitely. You left us with resources as far as books for us to be able to pour inside ourselves, as well as everything that you said when it comes down to sales. Because I've been in the sales industry for at least about, technically for at least about 8 years or so. But with that, everything that you said is consistent with everything that I was taught and learned. you know. So I mean, you really, I think you did exactly what we kind of said we wanted to get done with our takeaways, you know. And the biggest part was allowing for people to leave here more inspired to go out there into this industry. Have you noticed any probably stressors that can, because I know with me, I hate making phone calls. I hate cold calls. That's why I got so good with social media, because it kind of takes that burden off of me. I can't eliminate cold calls. However, you know, I can kind of smooth it out to where I don't have to do it as much. Do you see anything with looking at as it relates to COVID that's putting more of a strainer on the ways that people can find new lead sources, or certain lead sources that might have worked before? Because just like large conventions, in-person conventions, they're just not happening like how they were before, you know. So that could be a bummer for a lot of people. So have you noticed any type of ways that you can kind of, or like advice that people can kind of I guess re-encourage themselves going out there if they're doing things a little bit different than they have, and it might not be working as quick as they think? Like, is there any type of advice you'd give for that?
Well, I would say to your point, certainly, you know, conventions have gone downhill. As I mentioned earlier, physical visits, I think in this industry is very difficult. And with the advent of technology and most people just using their cell phones, realistically making cold calls, nowadays you're typically, you know, you're leaving a voicemail. And not that can't produce some results, but I don't think it should be your sole way of prospecting. I think social media and email especially are great tools because it allows people to respond at their convenience. So it lets them know you're there, but allows them to respond at a time. I think the key there is delivering quality content, because if all you're doing is say, hey, I sell this and I'm great and I'm better than this guy and this and that, that's going to just go by. No one wants to hear that. They want to hear information that's relevant and helpful to them. So if you can give them that information, whether or not it has anything to do with your particular profession, that'll make you engaging and make more people interested in hearing from you. And that's really what you want. You just want the audience so that you could say, oh yeah, and by the way, I help businesses save up to 60% of their insurance spend. But you know, you're probably not interested in that. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, Casey, man, we greatly appreciate all that. Now we left your contact information just in case someone wants to get in contact. We put it right in the chat box, as well as those 3 powerful books that you left as well. You know, so if anybody wants to look at those books, if you didn't write it down, they're in the chat section, as well as Casey's contact information. So we greatly appreciate for your time. We even had a comment on there that said, this is let me see, from Antonio, that was saying, thanks for your time and industry input. So you're definitely greatly appreciated. So I guess with no further ado, we're going to move on to the next and the final topic before we get into our overall discussion. Once again, we appreciate you, Casey. Now bringing to awesome. Now bringing to us all, we're going to introduce Shalita Shantae as we go into residual and renewable income, right? Something that she is very well versed in. And to give a great introduction, right? Because we have to make sure we give a great introduction on this one, right? I even have lightning that's starting to flash outside of my window because they knew she was about to come on, right? So so Shalita is actually the founder of the Millionaire Portfolio Group, which is hosting this at this moment. Entrepreneur, over 20 plus years of experience. And when I say that, you have to understand she's barely just 20 years old. She's been doing this all her life, you know. So started off as an entrepreneur, very young, ran her first successful business in the retail and beauty industry, then actually transitioned into, just like Mike, transitioned into the financial service arena in 2012. You know, and one of the key points that with Shalita is that she realized and recognized that, hey, being someone's employee doesn't really kind of fix or gel with my the balance of the ambitions I have for my life. You know, employee and family just didn't mix in the way that she was trying to balance it. So she decided to take matters into her own hands and actually created the Millionaire Portfolio Group, which is why we're here today. Right. So how you doing, Miss Shalita? Shantae, you can unmute yourself if you don't mind. We want to hear your precious voice.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the intro, Mr. Hunter.
Okay.
Just to kind of pick up on where you left off, and what everybody's kind of been hitting on is this thing that gets in our way as licensed professionals. And that thing is mainly compliance. It really just kind of irks your nerves, especially when you are federally licensed, you know, with all your different series from the 6, 63, 7, all of those stuff, which I had, you know, got my license in those. And so the initial why the Millionaire Portfolio Group was even started was to really get around compliance. It's so crazy, but it just kind of developed and formed over time. So I have a story that's going to knock everybody's boots off, because no one has a story like this one. And this one is a current story. I'm telling you, just happened within the last 18 months. All right, like I had a successful failure. My business system failed me during COVID. Yeah. I was working for a well-known company. If you're connected with me on LinkedIn, you can see it on there. I won't mention the company. And I was specializing, had a niche specialty, which is in the 403B market. So in the 403B market, I mostly dealt with nonprofits. Loved it. So COVID really was a blessing in disguise, but in that moment, it did not seem like it. The first time I got hit, basically was working as the employee for this huge firm, globally known in different countries. They changed the contract. Everything kind of goes back to contract, and just kind of them having, you know, they pretty much can, you know, do things according to how you signed up. And so the first thing was, let me ask the panelists a question. Like when you got federally licensed, what was the intriguing part about getting those federal license? Like, what was sold to you? Like, what was the power of those licenses for? For me, it was nothing but the residual income. That's all I could think about. Like, I'm working to get this residual pay, and it's just like, you know, it's just like extra money, and it's like money that can be passed down. Well, let me tell you what happened to me. The residual pay was taken away from me in my last corporate contract. So that was a blow. And so after that, COVID hit. And when COVID hit, we were in the hardest hit county in South Florida, where we had a really strict shutdown. And that shut down my biggest center of influence, which was Broward County Schools. It's the 6th largest school district in the nation. At that time, I had got through all the gatekeepers. You know, there's always a gatekeeper that keeps you from the person that's going to make the big decisions. So, I mean, I put in work. I mean, grassroots delivery, put in work. Like, you know, you have to be confident, literally walking in, and you basically, your goal is to get to the decision maker. So my marketing at that time was totally grassroots. It was face-to-face. You know, I might get on the phone, might email, but hey, if that's not going past, I'm going in the door, right? So now my center of influence is totally shut down. Everybody where I go and meet them at, they're no longer there. So that made it like 10 times more difficult to do transactional business. So after that, I was like, wow, I got to make a transition. I really have to make a transition now. On a personal note, COVID was at its height. So the concern of health is a concern for everyone. So I found it to be like the perfect opportunity when, I wasn't even looking for it, and to kind of transition from, I didn't leave it alone. It was like a smooth transition, but it's like more of my focus now, which is healthcare, in the healthcare industry with government products, which is like Medicare, affordable healthcare, that kind of stuff. And so I said, you know what? The scary thing is when you put so much work in your book of business, you're scared to leave that what you put. And that's your residual pay. That's your monthly pay, your yearly pay, where you, in your mind, you're like, well, I don't have to work for it. I already did the work. And, I want to keep accumulating that. So that was one of my fears with my transition. And I knew that my, once I left, that was not supposed to follow me. But can you say thank God for loopholes? So there was a loophole in that, to where that book of business that was built up could still, follow me where I went. But because of compliance purposes, and because I knew from previously entrepreneurial experiences from being in the beauty industry, we could freely market ourselves like crazy. But what I found out with being federally licensed, there's a lot of restriction on being able to market yourself. So what I did was I took my federally license and I put them on a shelf. And I said, you know what? I'll be back for you, baby. That's what I told them. And so I put it on the shelf so I could freely market myself, the practice, the business, everything, without having to go through what we call compliance hurdles. So that was that. Now I've discovered a different type of pay, which was called renewable income. In renewable income, what I discovered is really based on government regulated products. And how the income is renewable is based on what they call enrollments. So basically, you have so many enrollments per year, and you get a set commission. It's set, regulated by the government, how much you're going to get paid for that enrollee. So you enroll right now. It's coming up a big busy season. That's why I kind of want to have this conference before we hit the busy season, which is open enrollment. And so you enroll, and from there, every year in January, what they do is called renewable income. So you get paid again on that same income. So a lot of people right now that I meet out in the community, my senior friends, they are so aggravated right now because they get tons and tons and tons of unsolicited phone calls. Or it's where they may have put in their number online or their email online, and they get phone calls immediately all the way to a year later. And that's a new thing. Ever since the height of COVID, the sale of leads has really went up. Well, people are like selling leads, and the lead vendors, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the touch on diversifying your lead source. So what they're doing is selling leads and then reselling them over and over and over again. So people out in the community that's at home, our grandparents, our parents, they are so tired of receiving those phone calls, but it is strictly related to what they call the lead vendors, which insurance agents, they use those lead vendors. And
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and because you were touching on the residual and the renewal, the question was the question out there immediately that hit me is that how do you did you learn something about being able to protect that type of income? Because like when you work for that larger firm, but you had to walk away because you left it over there, right?
Right.
You had to leave it. So with moving forward, how does someone protect themselves from being in a situation to where they won't have to make a decision to where if I have to leave that renewal or that residual income?
Okay, so basically with the contracting for your it goes both ways for residual and renewal, is really based on how you are joining in. I mean, they have so many different companies, like they have FMOs, they have marketing companies. They have where you can enter in directly. Well, it really depends on the conversation that you have up front. And that's where people really don't really believe in that they can really negotiate their contract. They kind of believe it's like a unilateral, it's just one way. But agents, you have the power to actually put your input when it's time to sign your contract. You really, it's not like, yet it's an opportunity, but at the same time, it's a two-way street. They're lucky. You're not just lucky to have the opportunity, they're lucky to have you as well. So you have to look at it that way. You have to shift the mindset to say, okay, this is my life. I don't want to give up 2 years or 5 years and then I have to rework all over again. So the only reason why why I'm at the point now where I didn't give up what I work for. And that's not based on the company, that's based on me saying, okay, let me see how I can go around what they set up. So it's really based on really taking the time, like everyone said, it's so important to really go over your contract and to make sure whatever you work, you don't have to rework. Even if you transition to something different, you still have your investment that has already been made in the industry.
Okay, got you. So, and with that, because just in case someone doesn't, and because I've heard you speak about it before. So, and what I know for me, in case he had to go ahead and step out, he has another commitment. That guy's committed to everything.
Right.
He's a very helpful person. But so with because we talked about this before, and this leads into what we really want for people to take away from this is because I know for me, when someone helps me, every now and then you have to be kind of recharged with what you're doing. You can get burned out on doing the same thing over and over again. And with different industries, I know financial service has to be one of the most aggravating industries when it comes down to certain things. You're dealing with all the compliance, you're dealing with some of the pros and cons of even the clients that you take on. So with that and with everything else that's already going on, this has to be a very tough period for a lot of people. So one thing I know that helps really push me to grab that bull by the horns and ride is when I fully understand the power of what I'm touching. So we talked about this before. What do you see the power? What does it mean to have or be in a industry to where you have the opportunity to receive residual as well as renewable income? What does that mean?
Well, that means like getting your retirement a whole lot faster than you just putting in man work. You're putting in a lot of man work, and I call it transactional. You just depending on like from transaction to transaction, but when all your transaction leads to your income being renewed every year, that means you have what they call compounding income. See, residual pay is like a percentage, and it pays as long as you're able to what they call manage that account, it will pay. So with renewable income is based on what is based on your enrollment, and what we all know is everybody needs healthcare. So it's just based on you being that agent of record, and you're having a fixed amount of income that's renewed just because you are continuing to service those clients. It makes a night and day of how soon can you get to your individual income goals, your retirement goals, because we spend so much time working on our clients' retirement. Sometimes we're in that rut and we kind of forget about ourselves. We kind of forget about our own, like taking care of our own business and looking at our business hindsight.
So with and just keep in mind, I'm green to the financial service. I only know just a little bit about it. So when it comes down to different sides of the financial service, are there only specific areas that you can go in to be able to find specifically renewable income?
Yes.
Okay.
I only thought for years that the only way I can get residual income was through my federal license. That's all I knew. I didn't know anything else until it was time for me to transition due to COVID. And that's when I found out about the health side, which is the side of my license that I never used. Then that's when I found out about renewable income. And that's when I paid more attention to how I do my contracting. And yeah, so to my knowledge, those are the two ways. Yeah.
And I think it's probably a good thing. I think it worked out perfect that we put you at the end, because literally when you got down to the income part, every single thing that we had already addressed before actually wrapped in to the income. So because you talked about the importance of contracting, which reiterated what Lisa was saying. You talked about the transition, being able to transition from a situation to where you're going from, because you said that you found a niche when you went into healthcare. And being able to see, oh, wow, they got this big old perk right here, just like Mike told us that we need to weigh out the pros and cons before we start making that transition. You know, we even went into talking about diversifying lead sources, which is something that you had to do when you went from looking at, oh, I've cornered this little part of the market in Broward County, but as soon as that lead source got closed off with no failure of yours, you know, who could have saw that one coming, right? So who could have saw that the sixth largest school district in the country all of a sudden would not be doing anything? You know, everybody's going to be meeting virtually. Like, so with seeing that, now you had to find a whole nother way to be able to produce leads or lead sources, you know. So with all that said, you kind of put a spin on it. It seems like all this ties into the importance of being able to obtain the number one goal, because I don't care if anybody tells me. When I think about financial service, I think about money. And who doesn't want that? So in order to actually accomplish that, all the moving pieces have to be in place. So it's a great thing that we saved yours for the last, because you actually just wrapped it up for us, you know, everything into its proper perspective. You know, so
I definitely it was just a change of positioning, you know. So I mean, the great thing is I was like, okay, I may, you know, the employee part didn't really fit the scope, but I could still, I'm still doing the same service that I was doing previously with the same products, but now I'm independent versus being an employee where there's just more strict control. And it was like, you know, there's no way that, you know, you can really maneuver and hit your goals and dreams with people that really don't understand the agent that's selling. Because we're on the front street, everybody sees our face. People in compliance, they don't sell, so they don't get it.
Yeah, definitely. So we're kind of closing it out. What is one thing, like a major resource that you can probably leave somebody with, if we were looking at for someone that was just starting, or someone that's been in it for a while, or been in it for a second and now are looking at making a transition the same way that you did, of being able to figure out, okay, what works for me? What are do you know of any actual available resources that someone can utilize, or a resource that you can give to someone that can really help them connect the dots?
Yeah. So I went from being out in the field 90% of the time to now working mostly remotely 90% of the time. So a complete reversal. And so with that being said, my leads source is generated through, I still have, you know, referral sources. I would never leave grassroots, but now I'm taking advantage of being able to generate leads online, and being able to generate leads online that are not, you know, they're not particular cold leads, the people that actually want my services. And that's what we were able to do, you know, with our group, just find a way to market and generate those leads. And so now I'm mostly like on the end where I'm receiving phone calls or either I'm calling out because somebody said they were interested. So I enjoy most of that.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. All right, cool. So definitely, I believe that you really touched on all the points here. So the only thing to do now is really kind of close this thing out. And Mike, Mike's still here. You stayed all around like a champ, man, all the way to the end. Is there anything you wanted to leave people with? You know, it could probably really that you didn't hit them with before, kind of to help put an overall. You know how you get so much information sometimes, and you got to be able to kind of wrap your mind around it to get it to really make sense of, okay, this is this is it. Aha. You know, is there anything that you want to contribute?
Well, first off, I had to stay to the end. Shalita told me, okay? So she said that she's going to come after me if I didn't stay to the end. So, you know, it was not an option to leave early. I really wanted to hear what she had to say because I am familiar with her career path, and I think that she's kind of taken some hard knocks as she's kind of gone along. Some of the stuff that we talked about when we met several years ago, which was, you know, advantages, disadvantages of a career agency. And so your independent streak kind of took you away from the career, you know, the career agency, so to speak. I mean, to me, I think reviewing the contracts, finding a mentor, and building your network of professionals are really probably the keys.
Yeah, that was the key. That what you said, getting a mentor outside of your agency or your firm and having someone that you can coach with that's not directly tied to your pay. I think that was the most important one. Yeah.
And with that being said as well, because we gave you Mike's contact, the Millionaire Portfolio Group, you know, we actually put the event together, so we already have everyone's contact as well. I think everyone knows how to get in touch with us if they need if they need for us to take a look at something. That's what we do, you know. So we will be following up and getting contact with everyone that participated as we go along. Also informing everyone of the other events or workshops, anything it is that we have going on. So yeah, feel free, reach out to Millionaire Portfolio Group, reach out to Mike. You can reach out to Lisa as well as to Casey. That's what we're all here for, you know. So I just wanted to make sure that we put that one out there. Now, and I think this is definitely a phenomenal thing. I greatly appreciate all the expert panelists that volunteered their time. Nobody got $1 for this, you know. So definitely we greatly appreciate everyone that contributed, as well as the people that attended that are watching this now. We also will be sharing this later, you know, so the people that will be seeing this in the future as well. You know, is there anything you want to add, Ms. Shalita, Shantae?
No.
Yeah, we're good on.
We're good.
All right, cool. So if all hearts and minds are mended, we want to make sure that we put some great positive energy out there in the world. What we know is, and the key to it all is that what we know is that we all have these experiences inside of us that it is very selfish to hold on to, because there's always somebody that decided to pour into any one of us. So the energy that we're putting out there, we know that there is somebody who's going to look at this world, this mess of world or industry that we're in, and be able to make sense of it. And that's going to be that person, that group, that organization that actually innovates the next chapter when it comes to financial services. So we hope that we were able to play some type of piece in putting that energy that helps put that final piece of the puzzle together. All right, so with no further ado, we greatly appreciate everyone's time, everyone that participated, and everyone that will be seeing this in the future. If you need us, all the contacts in the chat. With no further ado, we will sign off.